Hello, and let's talk about the Boys Locker Room group. Over the past few days, details have emerged of an Instagram group called Boys Locker Room, where students of prominent Delhi schools, all of whom are teenagers, allegedly shared photos of girls and had sexually explicit conversations among themselves, including threats of gang raping these girls. The existence of this group was revealed by one of the girls who was targeted by the members. A 15-year-old boy was apprehended in connection with this group, and some details have emerged of some of the other students who are also believed to be above the age of 18. We talked to senior journalist Bhasha Singh on this issue. Bhasha, thank you so much for joining us. So, the boys' locker room controversy has exposed a lot of issues about, shall we say, Indian society itself and the way we are organized, the kind of patriarchy that we see around us. But this in itself is not really an isolated incident. It is located in a larger context, the impact of which we see every day around us in multiple ways, and especially online, especially when around the politics. So, could you talk a bit about the larger context with reference to this issue?
Yeah, basically, how I see that this issue is anyhow the panic button for all of the civil society, and especially for all the homes. That how we are dealing with the our youngsters, the next generation, what we are teaching them. I just want to take you to the case of the Safura Zargar. She's activist, student activist, very vocal activist against the movement which was going in the Jamia University, Jamia Millia Islamia, and she is now behind the bars. And the police has made a case against her that she was involved in Delhi riots and all that thing is being cooked. And now when she is in jail, she is being targeted by the great BJP leader Kapil Mishra in Delhi, and in a very abusive language. And from there till now, when we are talking also, you will find that there is bundle of tweets which is attacking her pregnancy. They are talking, they are just believing that it's better to assassinate her character. So character assassination is going on of Safura Zargar, and not a single voice from the ruling party, from the people who are attacking. No police action is being done. So you see that this is one of the recent case where we find that when there is an attack on woman dignity, her body, her pregnancy, everything. So there is almost a consciousness, everybody has collided together that we can do this, and nobody is being held accountable for this. And at the same time, this boys' lockers room case erupts. And I think that it was very good that these girls have shown so much guts to come in public and show us that what is going on across the thing. I'm not worried that what is going to happen to these 25, 22, now they are saying they are 51, and the interrogation is going on. But if you see the kind of text which they were dealing with, and the kind of impunity they were enjoying with, and it's a horrifying thing that when these all chats were leaked in a social media on the Sunday, then immediately they made a next group. And in that next group, they were deciding, they were discussing that how they are going to abuse these girls. They were planning to release their nude photos. So that shows that this kind of impunity we have built, at least in the capital also, where these boys were claiming that my father is very powerful, I'm very well off, I'm studying here. And the rape has become a game. We have so far seen that there are many video games across the country and across the globes which deal with the rapes. So these boys are into it. They are into a criminal act, and they know by their environment, their surrounding, that nobody is going to be held accountable. And even while discussing that how they are going to commit a gang rape, and many leaks are coming out which gives us a sense that they in fact committed a gang rape. So this is a horrifying incident. This was going on across when we find that Asaram Bapu, the people who are behind the bar, when we find that there are such a person, when we find Kuldeep Singh, or when we find Chinmayanand, and their following is not being reduced a little bit, their political patronage is not reduced a little bit, then you see in that context, then you will find that basically the rulers of this country have been very systematically, they have been made this, that if a rape is being done by a person in power, by a person of some religion, then there is 100% impunity to it. That's what the boys were doing. And in so far, we are discussing about this locker's room, but we are not discussing about the Safura Zargar. Why not those people who are abusing her? They are booked.
Exactly. And the other key question here also is what the institutions can do in such a situation, because we know that the Women's Commission has raised the issue. And you did make a very valid point that this is all happening in a culture of impunity, that the kind of response that those in power are giving actually, if not directly contributing, does create the environment for, say, an incident like the boys' locker room. But nonetheless, what can the institutions do in such a situation?
Basically, what I find that there is no so far training how to deal with the sexuality and what is a crime and what is a sexuality. You see the kind of masculinity, the aggressive masculinity which is being promoted, is spread across the country. When we talk about 56 inch ki chhati, that 56 inch, we are talking the whole political discourse.
Right.
So we are building a different kind of masculine political discourse across the country. And secondly, very important that the institutions have to teach the next generation that this is a crime. How you are going to deal with the girls and how the boys have to learn, because the whole focus so far of all our teaching, moral science, biology, everything in the classes is just focused on the girls, that how we have to keep them protected.
Right.
They should be safe. They should be dealing. In this also you will find they are talking that why the girls were dealing with those boys. The whole discussion around is just now being targeted on the girls,
right,
who are 14 years of age or 15 years of age. So basically the biggest flaw is that so far we have never tried to teach the boys that how they are going to deal with their sexuality and masculinity and the rape and the gang rape. You see the discussion which has been leaked from this Instagram group is a horrifying discussion which is a detailed discussion telling about their mind, that how they are dealing with it, they are enjoying with it, because that's what they are seeing around them. It's not, they have not learned from a vacuum.
Right.
They are learning from their home, they are learning from the society, and the society is like this, that if a rapist is there, then it's still, if he is out, Chinmayanand is out, then the whole case comes to the girl that they have to prove. So
right,
this kind of language and aggression has been given a different kind of impunity from the politics. It's from the top to the bottom. We can't say that it's going from the down to the top. It's from the top to the bottom, because
absolutely,
finally it is up to the political leaders that how they are going to deal with it.
right,
And the kind of silence in every case gives this kind of impunity that you can deal with it, you can just run away with it. And secondly, objectifying a woman, a girl, has become a culture. Basically, it has become a part and parcel of the culture. So which institution from the very beginning, I think we have missed it miserably. And the next generation is in a very dangerous condition. This is a kind of panic button which tells that our house, the boys, the youngsters, the teenager, we are turning them into a rapist. The rape culture has been always there, but now it has affected, this virus has affected the next generation. So that's a very dangerous condition which immediately should be intervened. We need to open up. Basically, we need to open up. So far, we have not been discussing about it openly. One case comes, then we'll have a little discussion. Then we are very calm with the patriarchy. We are very calm with the whole kind of masculinity and the sexuality.
right.
So we need to open up and have a democratic space where all these things can come on surface, and then it can be dealt.
Right. Thank you so much, Bhasha, for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks.
In our next segment, Prabir Purkayastha talks to Dr. Satyajit Rath on the effectiveness of remdesivir, which can potentially be used in COVID-19 treatments.
Hello and welcome to NewsClick. Today we have with us Professor Satyajit Rath, and we are going to discuss some of the issues which is relevant to the COVID-19 debate, particularly the role of remdesivir, how well it's going to be able to be effective against the COVID-19 epidemic, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and the linking of the Wuhan laboratory and trying to cut funding, talking about how the bad virus was being funded by various agencies, including the National Institute of Health, and why this is a problem. Now, Satyajit, let's first discuss the remdesivir issue. Interestingly, Dr. Fauci seems to be related to both the issues at the moment. Now, the remdesivir trials have taken place, and we don't really have what would be called the double-blind trial results in a peer-reviewed form, even as a preprint. What we have is reporting of this using the White House actually to promote a particular trial. Now, while it may be that the trial was really useful and so on, and therefore this is justified, how do you feel as a scientist about a double-blind trial results being announced in this particular way, which seems to have influenced a huge number of people in thinking this is a real treatment and that's what everybody should be using?
Yes, and it's disturbing in part because Anthony Fauci has so far been correct and evidence-driven, despite the precedent that he serves. But for him to announce the remdesivir results the way he did is disturbing, because clinical trials should be formally reported in a full publication with all necessary details that are looked at by people in the field. At most, at the very least, as a preprint. None of this has been done. What has been done is an announcement from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Director from within the NIH. That's formally Dr. Fauci's title, has been for many decades now. And that's unusual, to say the least. Not only is it unusual, it leaves me a little puzzled about why the hurry. Because despite the fact that it was presented as though remdesivir was efficacious, the data that were claimed in support of this efficacy are not startling or spectacular improvements.
Medically, we can call it modest improvement rather than really a magic cure, so to say.
Oh, it's certainly not a dramatic cure. If I remember the numbers correctly, hospital discharge median periods went down from 15 days to 11 days.
Yeah.
In the first place, let us agree that this is not bad. It's useful. But in the second place, let us also agree that this is not a dramatic cure. In the third place, also, let us remember that the decline in mortality in this trial did not appear to be statistically reliable. It went down from some 11% to some 8%, and this was not statistically.
As Fauci himself said, it was statistically not significant.
Which reminded me of the paper that was published in the Lancet just a few days ago.
The Chinese paper.
From Chinese researchers who did a remdesivir trial, perhaps a somewhat smaller one, but did a remdesivir trial, and had data that are actually remarkably similar in their conclusion to the mortality data that Anthony Fauci has reported, let us say. And that is that there is a trend to reduction that's not as yet statistically reliable. All of this put together makes me think two things. Number one, is remdesivir making a difference? Probably yes.
A modest difference.
Is remdesivir going to change qualitatively how seriously ill patients of COVID-19 are treated? I don't think that that's going to be the case. In other words, it's not a magic bullet cure. And if it's not a magic bullet cure, then this much of enthusiastic pre-publication publicity is a little difficult to understand. So one can think of all sorts of other reasons for doing this. One can think of generous reasons, such as the fact that this is a US presidential administration that is not known for being science and evidence driven and is desperate for good news. And here is one piece of kind of sort of science and evidence driven good news. And therefore it got pushed forward, let us say. One can also think, all said and done, this is Gilead and NIH collaboration-driven outcomes. And one can also be a little more cynical and think of this as a means of establishing Gilead's credibility, shall we say.
And global push for Gilead, therefore.
So one can think of all sorts of practical reasons why this was done. But let us be clear about this. Regardless of the absolute rights and wrongs, step by step, of how and why this was done, remdesivir is likely to be useful in modest fashion.
So there are two follow-up questions. One is, a lot of the scientific community has said this is going to distort all other drug trials because people are going to say, don't use us as guinea pigs, already established, remdesivir works, give it to us. So in effect, you are also going to therefore distort all other drug trials. This is one issue that has been raised. And the second issue, which of course Didier Raoult has raised, who is the hydrochloroquine guy, if you will, he has said, why is it the clinical trials, what was originally set out as the criteria, the end point, and one of the criteria was reduction in mortality. Why was it taken out of criteria midway through the trials? It's as if you are changing the rules of the game midway when the game has already started.
Yeah, so the first question that you raise, I'm not as seriously worried about, primarily because I think that everybody concerned, even distally, professionally, with COVID-19, is going to look at the data of remdesivir and say, it's useful, but we need more. Okay. So I would seriously doubt, I grant the point that you're making, but I seriously doubt that anybody is going to stop looking for drugs. And let me come back to that point about drugs, antiviral drugs for COVID-19 in a while. Let me address your second point of Didier Raoult's criticism. And to an extent, how shall I put this? It's a little bit a case of, as it's currently called, whataboutism. Professor Raoult has been accused of fiddling with his inclusion-exclusion criteria in the hydroxychloroquine trial that he reported. And he's understandably, justifiably or not, but understandably upset about it. And therefore, he now has a chance to indulge in whataboutism. Is he reporting correctly that the primary and secondary readouts were altered in the trial? Yes. Is it that unknown? No. Many clinical trials do this. It all essentially boils down to egos clashing, to people getting upset, and to storms in a teacup. We keep coming back to the core point, which is remdesivir is not more than modestly effective, even if you take everything at face value. And really, from the public health and from the societal point of view, that's all we are interested in. We don't really care who's quarreling with whom and calling whom.
The only question is dressing it up a bit more attractively, of course, has an effect on Gilead's share price.
Exactly.
That, of course, does make a difference.
That's all we have time for in this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news developments of the day. Until then, keep watching NewsClick.